Sejam muito bem-vindos ao Transformation Day. Esse é um evento global, mundial da Oracle, passando por várias cidades ao redor do mundo. E o Brasil não poderia deixar de estar incluído dentro dessa iniciativa da Oracle. Durante o dia de hoje, vocês vão ter a oportunidade de assistir mais de 30 palestras específicas para as áreas como marketing, recursos humanos, finanças, tecnologia. E alguns palestrantes de uma maneira totalmente diferente. Vocês estão vendo aqui jornalista, apresentador. Da mesma maneira, nós vamos ter empreendedores de sucesso, empresários, gurus de mídias sociais para ensinar um pouquinho como é que a gente pode ainda mais ser produtivo dentro do mundo digital. E o Transformation Day busca exatamente trazer para nós esse tema tão atual, que eu costumo dizer que não é uma transformação digital, eu costumo dizer que isso aqui é muito mais uma revolução industrial. Eu vejo que essa revolução digital é muito parecida com o que aconteceu lá no final do século XVIII, meados do século XIX, quando a maneira de produzir, a maneira de operar as empresas transformou o mercado de trabalho, o mercado produtivo no mundo, culminando no que a gente chama de revolução industrial. Isso levou 150 anos, mais ou menos, para essa revolução poder acontecer. E a nossa revolução, a revolução digital, como eu chamo, em pouco mais de 15 anos, tem afetado as nossas vidas, nossas empresas, de uma maneira irreversível. Talvez até mais contundente com a revolução industrial. Então, para iniciar o nosso dia de hoje, também de uma maneira bastante honrosa, eu gostaria de chamar aqui ao palco ele que é bastante eclético, é um esportista, velejador, participou de 3 IPOs em sua vida, foi presidente de uma empresa e hoje nós temos a honra de convidar aqui ao palco o nosso vice-presidente global de Cloud Transformation, Shawn Price. Obrigado, Shawn.
Thank you. Bom dia. Hey, fantastic to be here in Brazil.
It's a digital, right?
Yeah, it's digital.
Let's take
there
a
we go.
picture.
Oh. You're going to put it on selfie, Cyro.
Yeah.
Like this.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you, Shawn.
You know why he took that, right? Because next time he's going to send me a text beforehand and says, hey man, this is how the cool kids dress here in Brazil, no tie. That's the email I'm going to get. Thank you. Well, it is truly an honor and a pleasure to be here with you today. We're joined by hundreds and hundreds of you and thousands of our employees in Brazil. You know, it is an incredibly important market for us. We have more than 2,000 employees here. We announced a new data center in June of this year. And in Brazil, it leads all of Latin America in terms of its potential and its realization of cloud. This is the most exciting time in our company's history. I've structured this today really as a conversation to share with you what we see across 30+ million subscribers or 70 million subscribers who do 70+ billion transactions a day, every single day. And so we have a point of view and we've learned a thing or two about this. And to me, it's undeniable that cloud is here in every market, in every corner of all of Latin America, if not the world. And I think we have an opportunity to leapfrog many other geographies. Today, I want to talk to you about how Oracle is changing. And I think this is important because if you just think of us from the perspective of what we are on-premise versus what we have to do to become a cloud provider. And Larry and Mark in our Q4 earnings announcement said our objective is to be the largest #1 cloud company in the world. That takes a significant transformation. I want to share with you what we're doing. I want to share with you what's forcing us into the cloud, what forces you as companies. Not why are we selling you into the cloud, but what actually makes your businesses move for competitive advantage and what constitutes disruption. I want to share with you what our own expectations are, our cloud strategy, our vision, and a set of expectations. And I'll share with you, disruption is not a new concept at all. In fact, we often like to think of it as the domain of millennials and the domain of disruptors like Airbnb and Uber and many others. But this is a construct that has been around forever. In fact, if you think about disruption, the 2 anchor tenets that have to be there in order to transform are the first technical innovation, but the one that most people miss is the behavioral change. Because technical innovation without behavior change doesn't equate to transformation. I was trying to think of what's an example historically that makes sense in this regard. And, you know, with the Olympics coming to Brazil next year, congratulations, very exciting on the world stage. Brazil leads the world in the most Olympic gold medals in sailing. Now, personally, I'm a sailor. I love sailing. As you know, we also compete in the America's Cup. And if you think back, Cyro opened with some comments about the 1800s. If you think back to 1851 to the first America's Cup, the technology innovation was a completely and revolutionary new boat. The design was unlike anything they'd ever seen before. And they thought that it would never sail. But the behavioral change was that they started from behind. They dragged an anchor, and for every other race that raced in those waters, they always went around the lighthouse to the right side. And on this day, they went around the lighthouse on the left. And so the combination of technology innovation and behavioral change, they won that race by more than 8 minutes. But fast forward to today. Today, each of our boats, each of the boats that sail in the America's Cup World Challenge have more than 300 sensors that produce more than 3,000 data points per second. The boat is continually evolving with each race, in fact, in the race. Of course, like any normal boat, it has all of the data in the middle on a tablet around your speed and depth. But what the behavioral change aspect of this is that today, all of the sailors wear PDAs on their arm. They're streamed data that's relevant to their position, and they're able to provide role-specific feedback. And I think this notion of technology innovation matched with behavioral and cultural change is the foundation of disruption and innovation. Brazil is ready. This is not a case of a transformation to the cloud, waiting for certain infrastructures or waiting for other elements. I mean, you lead the world in so many categories. 53% of your population is on the internet. More than 45% use social media. 77% on mobile subscriptions. And if you look at the growth rate, it's staggering. Cloud spending by 2017 is forecast to be $2.7 billion. It's growing at 35% on a compound average growth rate. So this isn't a transformation that is happening. I would argue in many cases, in many companies, this is already a transformation that has occurred. But let's look at what's forcing companies to the cloud. Why do I need to move to the cloud? My businesses are operating. I already own a tremendous amount of infrastructure on premise. Why do I need to move? And I believe that there are 4 or 5 major initiatives. We went out and talked to about 1,200 companies. We said, what's making you look at the infrastructure you already own and transition to the cloud? And so there were many components. The first was a readiness for inorganic growth. Just a show of hands, how many of you in the audience, companies have acquired or been acquired in the last 5 years? Many of you. So companies are looking at cloud to get ready for inorganic growth. They're looking at cloud for efficiencies in post-merger integration, because at the end of the day, I have a choice. Do I invest in the on-premise world, or do I pivot to the cloud? Growth is coming from non-traditional markets. All economies are searching for growth in new ways. And that means often a global expansion. Demand for faster innovation cycles. All of us have smartphones. In fact, you know, if you look at your adoption rate in smartphones in Brazil, it's incredible. It takes Apple 1 year to produce a smartphone. Samsung now has their smartphone development cycles down to 45 days. This requires a change in thinking. But by far, the largest piece that's driving this is digital transformation of the business. We think about digital transformation in 4 buckets. And this is what we see at a macro, and Forrester has some interesting research in this regard. But we think the first piece will be the creation of digital demand and supply aggregators. What is Uber, what is Airbnb, other than a user interface into physical infrastructure? There's going to be personal information consolidators. Applications like Mint. There's concierge services like Get Ninjas and Go Butler and Hello Alfred. And then there's anticipatory agents like Google and Siri. And the applications that are transforming incorporate all of these. They need to be super easy to use. They need to abstract complexity of a physical infrastructure. They need concierge services, and they need to be highly personalized. An opportunity for disruption exists in every one of our companies. Where companies are starting this digital transformation are around areas of where 90% of the feedback we get is that the framework for competition will be customer experience. That's what's going to differentiate us. Because let's face it, many of these offerings today are standard. But where do we start? Customer insight. We have to be able, in this socially connected world, to look at behavior online and sentiment and activity and a thumbprint of digital activity and create personalized content based on personas. Because if we do this right, we get advocacy. Our customer interactions, what they're saying about us, how they use our service, how we interrogate it, how we learn. I don't know about you, but I certainly hate getting on a call these days to listen to a call center to resolve my insurance policy, to order products. I don't want to talk to call centers. I want digital, I want you to know me, and I want you to communicate through the channel I came in with. Highly personalized. Or policy automation. If you're in the government, I'm seeing a massive transformation in the government. Well, why don't you know me? I pay taxes. You know where my house is located. You know where my kids go to school. Why am I not a digital wallet called Shawn Price that's consumable across all? In fact, why do I even have to get in line anymore when all of this can be transacted online? Digitization of processes through crowdsourcing, and on and on and on. I recently came back from India, Internet of Things, another example. They have completely done away with, in many of geographies that they're piloting, the notion of a driver's license test. Why would I have a driver's license test in this environment? I can instrument the car, I can instrument the road, I have an application on my mobile device, I get in the car, I drive the course, I do my parallel park, and I pass or fail. Why do we have all of this infrastructure? And this is available today. So where do companies start? And this is a little different. The way people consume cloud is each transaction is an audition for the next. Our customers aren't just doing big bang, enormous transformation, multi-million-dollar long-term projects. Our subscribers often start with a single process. I have an acute pain point, I have a strategic initiative, and I want to solve for that pain point. But increasingly they're saying, well, what's the next step in the process chain? So maybe it's workforce planning, now connects to a business function called recruiting, which then connects to a human capital management strategy called recruit to retire. And then ultimately, it's cloud to cloud. In Q2, 30% of all of our transactions were multi-cloud. And I think the main point here is that we've abstracted the complexity. You can buy at the pace that your business dictates. Each transaction is an audition for the next, in addition to the big bang and the large transformational deals that we know. And I don't want to represent to you that Oracle is fully transitioned to the cloud. This is not a trivial undertaking. If you think about it, your business and how you interact with us couldn't be more different than your experience with us on-premise. How did it work on-premise? You bought an ERP application from me 5 years ago. You probably spent tens of millions of dollars on the application, maybe multiple millions on the implementation. It took us 18 to 24 months to go live. When we finally went live, it was so customized that you were knocking on our door saying, how do I innovate? How do I consume innovation? And you were stuck. And the next time we released an upgrade, along came another scope of work for multiple millions, and along came a one-year project. How does that fit the agility required today in our market? And so the first area that we've had to evolve is in the consumption of innovation. And think about this. 70 million subscribers every single day tell me what they like, what they don't like, what's hard to use, what we need to reinforce. And I take that and produce 500 features every 90 days. Imagine one application over 3 years produces 6,000 feature upgrades. And when 70 million people tell you about your product, your application, and your service, and by the way, we announced in Q1 150% year-over-year growth rate on a bookings basis on over 500 million. And so it's not inconceivable that we have 200-300 million subscribers, and that will narrow how far we are or aren't off the use case. But think about consumption of innovation, and that's transparent to you. No training, no scope of work, just support and enablement. And that's what's driving a whole shift here. But it's our responsibility. We have to keep pace with change. So we have to be up to speed on regulatory and compliance and take it on. And the way I think about this is that it might be December 20th, and we have a regulatory change. And the fundamental question we need to answer is whose team stays, yours or mine? It's not just about technology best practices, because there's one important thing overall. And for the first time in history, we are truly, truly on the same side. You see, if you don't go live and you don't consume the subscription, you don't renew. And so our focus and your focus has to be on go live. And it's not just about best practices in technology. We have to enable you with practitioner guidance and best practices and how to get adoption. And we're in this, we're together. And if we do all of this right, as you'll see when I go through some of the SaaS applications, we get to a point called customer advocacy. And this is the only currency that counts. We can market to you, we can come to cool places, but if you don't say, Oracle went live, it was easy to use, we consume innovation, there was huge value, then you don't renew, you don't expand, and that's the foundation of our cloud business. Many, many of our areas are in transformation. Even the way we connect to you as our subscribers and customers. I'll give you a couple of examples of some of the friction points and things we're solving for in this world. We have an enormous consulting organization, and they've always been bookings, billing, margin, utilization, get in, stay in. That's interesting in an on-premise model. In the cloud, all I care is that you go live in 90 days. Transparent pricing. We'll be there tomorrow morning at 9 a.m. You can have pricing on a fixed price, fixed bid, go live in 90 days. You can have pricing on the subscription, from 1 subscription to 1 million. We'll connect you with practitioner best practices. We will do a live demo connecting our application to your infrastructure. This is the new way that the line of business consumes. And so to me, it's inconceivable that in our strategy of 4 tiers in the cloud, if we start with SaaS, software as a service, that we don't have an application for every single function in your business. What's common around our strategy of SaaS is this notion of modularity that I talked about. You could start with an app, a grouping of apps, or multi-cloud. It's mobile first, built-in social, analytics built in with big data, and we've solved the hard stuff. It's about configuration, customization of user interface. You can change your workflow, your data fields, your dashboards, and we're pre-integrating cloud to on-premise across a common data model and common security model across all applications. If we look at this in practice, and you think about the notion of why do you have to move to the cloud, I wanted to share with you our observations in ERP finance and what's making companies move. And I have to tell you that in our Q1 earnings announcement, we announced that we will end the year with 1,000 ERP customers. These are not small companies. These are companies doing tens of millions of dollars in transactions, and they're moving because they're evaluating a choice between on-premise extension and ERP in the cloud. So if we look at digital transformation, it was really built in 2013, less than 20% of CFOs would consider it viable to move financials to the cloud. But today, 53% of CFOs use cloud. And so the question is why? What's the business case? If you're a company with any type of growth, whether it's regional or otherwise, you're going public or you're being acquired by private equity, you have a very simple choice. Do I extend the ERP? And do I have the luxury of time to extend the ERP? Or do I move to the cloud and coexist? Subsidiaries. 2-tier ERP. I want to keep everything that I have encoded, centralized, but I now want to push out to the CFO and the regional divisions a higher degree of flexibility. 30% of that ERP will be corporate governance, and 70% will be around the operations regionally that I'm running. Centralized or decentralized. Acquisitions and divestitures. What's the first thing the CFO says when we acquire or contemplate acquisition? How do I merge the financials? How do I enable and reconcile? I bought a company, it happens to have SAP. I want to roll it into my Oracle ERP instance, and the best middle step might be ERP in the cloud, and so on. ERP goes hand in hand with enterprise performance management. How many of you do zero-based budgeting or forecasting or disclosure requirements and regulatory from a finance function? Many of you. Well, what we're seeing is enterprise performance management in the cloud takes away all of the overhead of what we've been doing for generations. We see many, many customers who have Hyperion on top of SAP or Hyperion on top of Oracle, and now they're extending, and they're using really 3 use cases. They're putting zero-based budgeting planning tools in the hands of the line of business, not just finance. They're putting forecasting and predictable performance KPIs and metrics into the hands of all users. And in this environment of increased disclosure requirements, global regulations, ad hoc reporting, manual input, we're seeing all of this combining into a new use case for enterprise performance management. We have an enormous amount of progress, though, in Latin America, and I wanted to show you that across every industry, in every single market, we have customers who have already moved. Remember I said this isn't happening, it's happened? Our growth rate in this product is enormous, and it's for those use cases that I described. One of the other areas that I want to focus on is the transformation that's happening in HR. And what we see in many markets every single day, so the top line shift that forces me to the cloud is that in many markets every single day, 20,000 people turn 65 and are going to do so for the next 20 years. So people leaving the workforce and retiring. On the front end, not enough millennials. We just don't have enough people, particularly at the skill set that we need. Yet the applications you bought from us or bought from competitors, the SAP HCM, PeopleSoft, these were built around a different problem. They were built around applicant tracking. That's not our problem anymore. The new problem is actually workforce planning and analytics. In an environment where you have growth, flat, or decline, comprehending your workforce, who's ready for the next promotion? Who do we have that we can extend and scale? What skill sets do I have that might be repurposed is the first starting point, workforce planning and analytics. In an environment with scarcity of talent, you can't just go out with a requisition in your hand and hope to hire in this competitive market. You have to actually start to brand and build warm pools of talent in advance of that so you can create a connection with these scarce resources before you go to hire. And if you look at turnover rates in corporations, millennials turnover, typically the highest point is at 6 months. Why? Because they don't feel connected. They don't believe that your company is a meritocracy. It operates like a hierarchy. There's not enough education and skill set for me to feel relevant that this is a corporation we're spending time in. And so they're related. Analyze my workforce, create warm pools of talent, onboard my new employees so they feel connected and engaged with the company. And we've had to really rethink this. One of our companies in Brazil, Oi Telecom, has enormous millennials. And the problem was, how do I recruit and retain this new group of employees? We met with the line of business leadership and human capital management and the CHRO, and we looked and assessed what was the problem. It was exactly as I described. This application was acquired and went live in 4 months. That's a completely different approach than on-premise. They've seen an increase of more than 250% in qualified candidates in their pipeline because of this recruiting marketing and social recruiting. They've had a 30% reduction in the cost per candidate. And they're seeing tens of thousands of shared views on opportunities. And the CHRO will actually speak on our behalf in Rio later in the week. So that's HCM, part of our SaaS portfolio. By a single app, workforce planning, by recruiting, by onboarding, or go end-to-end recruit to retire. And this modularity attached to a strategic initiative and transformation is what every function in the business is going through. Marketing is under enormous pressure. Remember we talked about the digital experience is how companies will compete? 57% of the buying decision is done before you talk to a rep. I'm sure we're all the same. I don't know, how many of you bought a car recently? Anybody buy a car? Lots of you. What I did is I went online and I looked at what is the vehicle, what are the options that I want, what is the sticker price on it, and then I called the dealer, 2 of them, and I said, I want to buy a car today with this set of specs, and walked into the dealer and said, this is the price, these are the options, do you have it in stock, yes or no, and if you don't, I've got your competitor on the line. This is the transparency and reality of the buyer's journey, whether it's enterprise software or buying a car. I mean, think about this for a second. Have you ever clicked on a Google ad, browsed it, then you get a display ad for that product. You actually buy it, and you like it on Facebook. And then very shortly thereafter, you're immediately retargeted for the same product. How disconnected is that? Survey data shows that 78% of customers have an enormously fragmented experience on a channel-by-channel basis. And so there's an explosion of digital channels across silos of marketing and customer data, no centralized hub to manage customer interactions, 80% of CMOs lack synchronization, and social and content aren't delivering. So what does it take to move into this world where the buyer journey has changed? It's nothing short of sending the right content to the right potential buyer at the right time. And yet we can't do it. Where you start is with a data management problem. We need to take first, second, and third-party data to create a composite view of all of the digital interactions. We then need to look at cross-channel and marketing effectiveness by channel against that data. We build customer profiles and customer attributes. And so, for example, if somebody responds to an email and purchases, immediately we send the campaign to cross-sell. If you look but don't buy, I want to send a display ad and retarget. If you haven't seen the website, serve up a paid social ad. Our marketing cloud grew more than 200% year over year in Q3. This is an area of digital transformation that in many ways provides such an enormous and immediate gain that you can quantify because of these digital interactions. But it is only the first step of solving for customer experience. Because what we need to touch is Salesforce automation, product configuration. With complex products in insurance or finance, I probably need to touch Service Cloud for some kind of pre-sales flow and post-sale flow. And what we want to do is we want to take that marketing campaign that I just described and we want to move that content, contact, account lead, service, pre-sales, post-sales, all of it into that broader process. And let me tell you, part of the transformation of Oracle is that it can't just be Oracle. So if your CRM is Salesforce, and you use my marketing cloud and my service cloud and my CPQ, that data transforms and enters seamlessly. And that's an important extension. So customer experience, ideally we of course would like you to stay in the Oracle family with all Oracle products, but if you should have something different, connectivity across that to solve for it. The fourth layer of our strategy in cloud, our newest layer, is what we call data as a service. Think about it, 70 million subscribers. I ought to have a pretty good opinion on what's happening by industry and how people are consuming and using. And what we do with data as a service is we interrogate. So think about CX I just described. We interrogate behavioral data, social data. What did you buy? We look at it from a marketing lens. We look at it from a sales lens. We look at it from a customer intelligence. It allows me to unify insights from structured and unstructured data, and it sits on top of all of our SaaS applications. This is completely different. Most companies have an application that they embed some type of data service inside, and you draw the insights. We're marrying broad market insight with application insight in a new layer called data as a service. I'm not going to spend more time on software as a service, but what I would really encourage you as a call to action, I hope you'll take this up, And whether, we've got Cyro and Luis with us here, our president and our EVP and GM for Brazil. We have an organization that wants to have a conversation with you. They want to come in tomorrow morning at 9 o'clock. They want to show you 80% use case in any of these applications that most companies use. They want to show you the KPIs by which those processes are measured. They want to show you how to integrate to the existing infrastructure you already own, whether it's mine or somebody else's. They want to produce a fixed price, fixed bid, go live 90 days, if that's your problem, or they want to produce a scope of work to transform entirely. We can price you tomorrow morning one subscription to $1 million, and we will connect you with communities who can give you practitioner guidance. I hope that we can have a dialogue, because we want to share our view of state-of-the-art. Platform as a service is the next layer of our strategy, and it's incredibly important. It's both line of business and technology subscribers. It's developers, multiple programming environments, all application types. As you go around the wheel, and I won't bore you with all of this because it's a very busy slide, but think about it in terms of all of the infrastructure that you need to run any business, whether it's mine or another company's application. If you think about what this represents in totality, this is an enormous market across app server, Java, database, middleware, security, identity, that we've moved entirely into the cloud. This infrastructure runs 19 of the 20 largest SaaS companies in the world today. SAP, SuccessFactors, Salesforce, all Oracle underneath. So in addition to the 70 million that we have, our infrastructure powers the world for cloud computing. It's not Amazon, it's not Azure, it's Oracle. I thought what I would do is actually distill this down into what we're seeing as some of the early use cases that have applicability. Because what you've been telling us for a long time is, Shawn, we're going to take thousands of applications and we want to collapse them down to a smaller footprint. We want to take the cost, we want to reduce the cost of what it takes to work with Oracle. We want to lessen that. And so the first use case that we see, which is unique to Oracle, is that there's a problem in SaaS. When you buy Salesforce or Workday or any of these applications, everybody gets the same line of code. And that has good news, that I can innovate quickly, but it also has a downside. What happens when I need to extend that application? In the on-premise world, you would come to Oracle, you'd knock on the door, and you'd say, "Hi, I'm company XYZ, we're a great customer of yours. Can you please put on your roadmap this functionality?" And we'd say, "We'd love to," and it would show up a year later. That doesn't happen in SaaS. So how do you extend a SaaS application? With platform as a service, the first use case is PaaS is attached to every SaaS application, mine or otherwise, because I can take Java as a service, I can build white space applications, I can create intellectual property, and I can extend SaaS. And there's this enormous ecosystem around us at Oracle where we have partners who are building this stuff. Think about it. If you have a union labor contract in mining and the collective bargaining agreement changes, who puts that into the human capital management app? Maybe not me. Maybe it's you. So first use case is extensibility. Second, as the world moves from edge process, I want to solve a CRM, I want to solve a talent management, I want to solve, you name it, to mission critical SaaS. You never flip the switch. We're not flipping the switch on ERP to go bang, it's off, we're all in the cloud. Or human capital management that's wired up to benefits and payroll and many other areas. We coexist for a period of time. How have we solved that historically? We've built bespoke and custom integrations in the middle. In platform as a service, what we're doing is we are now using it as a service. First thing I need is integration as a service between the on-premise and the cloud. The second is I need middleware as a service between the two. The third is I need security as a service between them. Identity management and reporting across. But here's the big aha. So that's cool, takes cost out, but here's the big aha. I have one user interface to manage the on-premise instance, the private instance, and the public cloud. And I can tell you what's running where and how. And so in addition to the cost, there's the management component of this. So the second use case is extensibility. I wanted to show you the implications of moving database to the cloud economically. This is the TCO argument. Who better than Oracle to run Oracle? Sure, you can go buy a database instance from Amazon and Azure, but that's not the big problem. What we charge is about $1,550 US per core per month. And when you outsource that to one of our competitors, what they're taking out is $50 in facilities, $100 in hardware, and $500 or $400 in license. But that's only a third of the problem. You're still responsible for the DBA, the scripting, the patching, the maintenance, everything in the cloud. What we've done is we've taken on that management, that layer of management for you. And so not only are we doing facilities and hardware and software, we're operating that database on your behalf. And so we're attacking the $980 portion of the market to remove the cost even further. And what we think will happen is that for Oracle units of work, we are going to be price advantaged because of this. If you look, this is cloud to cloud. What about on-premise? On the left side here are more than 88 steps to provision a database on-premise. SSL certification, installing the hardware, connecting the network. If you haven't tried it, go through your browser, provision a database trial instance in the cloud, and you're live in 30 minutes. Another area of platform as a service is our mobile development. You think what looks like a simple app, like an HR extension as we described, well actually it's quite complex with more than 10 integrations, core HR, talent management, on-premise SAP. And there's many, many more. If I can leave you with one thought, it's the same as SaaS. Pick a service to take cost out of your infrastructure and migrate it to the cloud. If you're going to choose a SaaS application, attach PaaS to it because it's far less expensive and more manageable. And if you're going to move a unit of work like dev and test, instead of doing it behind your firewall on-premise, move the dev test to the cloud. Provision it instantly. And because we have this notion of portability between on-prem, private, and public cloud, I can move it seamlessly between environments and rethink that. And about a month ago, Larry announced at least, I can't do the math on the fly there, 25 new services available in platform, bringing them to 40. Infrastructure as a service is the foundational element of our cloud strategy. We're not going after compute and storage as it relates to Amazon and Azure and have you buy those machines. We're attaching it to the entire strategy. SOA, Internet of Things, compute and storage, etc. And if you look at the economics, this is pretty staggering. Just one illustration of one service. $240K per year versus 6.2 million with EMC, 5.4 with IBM, and 2.6 in Oracle. As it relates to Oracle unit of work or any service cloud subscription, there is not only is it digital transformation, it's economic power. Can we advance the notes one more? There we go. Can you go back a slide, please? Thank you. Our ecosystem of partners is so important because their business has changed. It's not just about the big bang on-premise $10 million deal anymore. It has to be about how do I get you live and what services are recreated. Their practices, if you think about it, we have one partner globally who has 50,000 certified Oracle consultants and 21,000 Java developers who have now licensed PaaS to create new service offerings into your enterprises around any of the use cases that I just described. And here's the kicker. I don't have to train them. I don't have to recruit them. It's the same skill set on very similar technology, but in the cloud. And so it's not just Oracle, it's in a broad ecosystem that surrounds it of white space applications and platform as a service practices and specialization by application. And our SIs and Oracle are modernizing more than 400,000 customers. It's a huge opportunity. So to me, it's undeniable that this strategy is working. I want to say thank you to you. You've informed our strategy. Brazil has always had a clear and present voice into Oracle about what the transformation is you're doing and the direction you're guiding us, and I want to say thank you, because you have a very, very big voice at Oracle. We're making progress. I don't want to over-represent that we've transitioned and that everything is perfect and it's great. It's not. You will see bumps in the road against the strategy that I just described, but we are making progress. Today, we're the #2 SaaS company in the world, and we're making progress to be #1. I think that when companies said that we were late to the cloud, it was because they were defining an old problem. They were defining a singular application problem. I would say to you that there is no company in the cloud that has thought about it across all dimensions of what I've described: infrastructure, platform, software as a service, data, surrounded by an ecosystem. Our competitors solve pieces of this. Workday, Salesforce, applications, Microsoft, database, little bit of ERP, mostly personal productivity, Azure. Nobody's going end to end. We as a company need to change and focus on your consumption of our innovation, go live at all cost, and transforming business functions economically and digitally. The cloud is here today. The future is ours. Brazil, thank you so much for having us. Thank you for all of your input and your great partnership. It's been a pleasure. Thank you so much.
Thank you.